Let's take some time and talk about everybody's favorite conversation, and that's money. The reality is, in church planting, money is going to have to be part of the process, in specifically talking about fundraising. And then once the money is raised, what do we actually do with it? Now, I don't know what your perspective is when it comes to fundraising, but typically we have one of the two kind of perspectives. One, sometimes we feel like we're a used car salesman, kind of the sleazy guy just doing everything he can to get a buck. Or sometimes we feel like we have to be the motivational speaker in order to persuade people in order to giving towards the new church. Here's a perspective why this is such an important conversation. The reality is, early on, when you hit the ground running as a new church planter, 75% of your time actually needs to be devoted towards raising money. Second of all, then it's going to be 15% towards kind of developing your prayer team, and then you're looking at probably 10% dealing with the legal issues. Now, this is early on, so it will change and it will adjust, and you'll get to a point where fundraising isn't something that you really have to worry about that much. But when you first hit the ground and you're getting ready to launch this vision of this new church, you're going to have to spend a lot of time in specifically going after and raising the funds in order for you to get this church up and off the ground. Why? Some of it may be used for your salary or other salaries. There's going to be startup costs. There's going to be rent. Sometimes you, depending on your situation, you may actually have to put down a couple months worth of rent because you don't have the resources or the history to kind of back that up, let alone just the equipment in order to start. If you're in a portable situation, you're probably looking at a trailer, then you're looking at sound, lighting, children's ministry, and so much more. Now, this will help us to kind of begin the financial conversation. And this is specifically kind of current trends that we're seeing when it comes to fundraising in the nonprofit world. Now, this isn't just specific to churches, this is nonprofits as a whole, but I think there's some things that we can take out of this, some things that you and I can learn based on what we're seeing right now in our current trends in society. First of all, nonprofits are investing more staff and resources towards donor relations. The thing that really helps us understand is when it comes to fundraising, the relationship is incredibly important. Don't go too quickly over this, because I think sometimes we think, or we can fall into the trap thinking, I just need to sell the vision really well and get this person to give me a check. And when we do that, we bypass the importance of the relationship. The relationship is why people get involved, why they invest. They believe in you and they believe in the vision that you're driven towards, and they want to be a part of that. They want to help support that in the process. The second thing that we're seeing is that nonprofits are seriously investing in social media presence and listing online social media ambassadors. What that means is it's important to understand that we've got to get the story out. We've got to tell the story on a regular basis. People want updates, which is, again, relationally connected. And so figure out and dream up innovative ways in which you can utilize social media, both to tell the stories of what's going on, help people understand how their resources they're giving is actually being used, how it's an effective tool in carrying out the ministry of what God is doing. The third trend we see is that the end is actually coming to general unrestricted fundraising. People actually want to know exactly what program or initiative their money is helping. This is critical to understand even in the church world, because the newer generation tends to give towards projects or causes that align with their value system and their heart. There was a day and time that a lot of people just give, and they give freely to the general budget of a church or any kind of nonprofit. Those days are slimming down. And so one of the things you may want to think through is giving people multiple opportunities to be able to give, and to give specifically towards the things that you know that are very, very important to them. What would those things be? They may be things like children's ministry. It might be things of international missions. It could be church planting. There are numerous things that people value and would be important for them to look at and think of. And so in that, you want to pay attention to it. Number 4 is utilizing technology and media to tell compelling stories. Again, the story matters, and you want to think through how are we getting the word out? How are we telling the stories? And think through even life change moments, connecting people to the fact that, hey, because of your investment financially, we were able to do this, and so made a decision for Christ because of that. help link the connection of people's giving and to how the mission is being carried out. Number 5, the term philanthropy has a more positive appeal than fundraising. I don't think there's a whole lot there other than we just recognize people want to be known as being philanthropic. And so just I think it's good to be aware of. Next, fundraising will continue to be underfunded as there are more opportunities, meaning that there are people that there's more competition when it comes to each dollar that exists out there. A great resource, take a little bit more time to dive into this, is a book called Not Your Parents' Offering Plate. It really helps understand how much more attention we have to give in our churches to help people understand what we're about and how they can be involved financially. Knowing, again, there's limited resources and everybody is competing for the same dollar. So we got to get better at what we do. We got to get better at really clarifying the vision, clarifying our mission, and how people can be a part of that. Number 7 is mobile giving will continue to increase. As quickly as you possibly can, you want to make sure that funding opportunities in order for people to be able to give are located on your website. Look at text to give. As easy as you possibly can, get it up and running. Now, you may sit there and go, there's so many different resources there are. My biggest is just find something that works that you can simply put in touch and get the money begin to flow in. And number 8, future efforts will be evaluated by an organization's ability to actually talk about their accomplishments in meaningful and in measurable ways. People want to know, is this worth it? And so year after year or month after month, you want to make sure that you're connecting with your donors and explaining what's going on and keep the relationship alive. Now, there's effective ways to go about the fundraising conversation and ineffective ways. And so here's kind of the ladder of effective communication when it specifically comes to this whole idea of fundraising. You can just mail out regular handouts. You could do some generic ads on social media. You can make up some brochures, or you could sit down one-on-one and have a conversation and share with a couple or with an individual, hey, here's our heart, here's our vision, here's what we're praying for. Would you join us in that process? And you can make a very specific financial ask in that process. The one-on-one, the deeper connected relational, communication style is going to be a more effective when it comes to fundraising and actually seeing people respond to the ask than more general opportunities. Sometimes it may be appropriate to do small group, maybe even large group conversations. The one question I tend to get when it comes to the fundraising conversation is, what about those major like GoFundMe accounts where it's a social marketing, we put it out there and we're asking people to give towards our cause. I'm not a huge fan. I would kind of place that somewhere in the middle of the ladder of effective communication. And the reason is they tend to only receive one gift. And then somebody goes, I've done my deed. I've given towards this vision. I'm done. The power in moving forward in the fundraising conversation is you want to get as many people that give month to month versus just the one-time gift. And that helps you to understand there's deeper buy-in. And for some reason, if something came up and you needed to request maybe a little bit more, you actually have an instant pool to be able to engage that conversation. And so look at how do we generate month-to-month income versus just one-time giving income. Why does this conversation, why do we need to be about fundraising? I talked about a couple practical elements, but let's talk about some other aspects of this. Number 1, Scripture does talk about the full-time Christian worker deserves financial support. So you don't need to feel guilty in asking people to support you financially as you move forward in carrying out this vision. God will raise up people for these type of moments to actually be able to support you financially. And so trust in his provision with that. Second is people are just blessed when they live generously. Now, it doesn't mean that we're going to receive tenfold on whatever we give. But Scripture is kind of clear that God loves a cheerful giver. And he is a generous God. And when people follow his values and live generously as well, he blesses them. And so we don't want to deny people the opportunity to experience God's practical blessing and provision in their lives out of the act of being generous. The third, why this matters, is God's blessed our generosity of his people. He loves it when his followers are reflecting his heart and his value system to the world around us. And so, again, we don't want to deny people that opportunity. And lastly, generosity supports the practical work of ministry. It does take money to keep the lights on. It takes money to do what is done week in and week out, on top of benevolence requests and many other things. And so generosity helps carry out just the week-to-week aspect of our mission. Now, here's some basics of strategies when it comes to fundraising. First of all, it comes back, you got to know your why. You got to be able to articulate that with incredible clarity. This is why we're planting. This is why we're targeting this community. Here is our hope. Here's our approach. And I would request people to pray with you in the process of even maybe financially being supportive to this work. Do your homework. Number 2, do your homework on the person that you're actually asking. Understand their values. Understand the things that make them tick. And the more that you connect your vision and what the church is going to be about to their value system, the more likely they are going to give towards this new opportunity of church planting. And so again, if their heart is really geared towards children's ministry, maybe they themselves came to Christ in a church's children's program. That may be the thing that you're able to sit down and talk about is, hey, day one, we want to have a stellar children's ministry, but this is what it's going to take for us to be able to do that. Would you be able to give financially to help us actually make that happen? The third strategy is understand the law of rejection. People will say no, and this is where you just have to be persistent. Don't take it personal when people tell you no. That's something that exists between them and God. The reality is you're called to just make the ask, and the obedience factor is something more personal between them and the Lord. And the reality is there may be something going on in their life in this season that they just can't. They may want to, but maybe they lost their job. Maybe they are expecting some health challenges, and so there's just a safety net that they need to continue to maintain. Number 4, develop a prospect list. I would encourage you to even maybe list it. You have an A list, a B list, a C list, and begin to outline based on relationship. Those that you have a closer relationship, those will go in the A list, B list. And then out of that is kind of number 5, divide the prospects into categories or groups, knowing that I need to develop a specific approach for each one of those groups. So if it's A, like these are people I have a real tight relationship with, know that I need to sit one-on-one with them, or at least get across the screen and do a Zoom call where we can have the conversation and makes it feel much more personal. If it's down in a C group and maybe it's more an acquaintance of somebody that's coming to be a part of your launch team, that could be a little bit more generic. It could be maybe a handwritten note. Maybe you have your friend actually make an introduction to a conversation. Number 7, it says always get something from the contact. This is an opportunity for you to be resourceful. And so don't, when you engage these type of conversations, you want to ask them, is there anybody else in this conversation that I should be having this kind of conversation with? Any other friends, any other family members that might be interested in what we're doing? And so always get that. Second of all is, again, ask them to participate in both areas. Ask them to join your prayer network and your prayer team. And we'll talk more about prayer strategy in one of the upcoming sessions. But at the same time, you want to engage them talking specifically about, hey, are there other people? Are there any other organizations that might want to be a part of this as well? Then ask for confirmation in writing. There's something powerful when people actually see it respond to them in writing. And so let's say you have a lunch meeting and the person looks across the table and says, we would love to be able to support you, and we can support you at $75 a month. Fantastic. The moment you get back to the office or the moment you get back to your home, shoot off an email to them and say, thank you so much. It was great having the opportunity to hear more about what God's doing in your life, have the opportunity to share what God's doing in our lives. I want you to know it means the world to us that you would financially be a partner with us as we carry out and take this risk of starting a brand new church. I just want to reiterate, I heard you say $75 a month starting maybe June 1. Sometimes you'll find that people, when they actually see the number in writing, that's the thing that makes, I remember I need to set up my reoccurring giving just so I don't have to think about it. Other times, you'll even find couples go, you know what, I kind of sold you short. I know we said 75, but we can do 100. Because there's power in the number. So you want to respond with confirmation as quickly as you possibly can. Number 9, understand why people stop giving. Again, it comes back to a relationship, and you're engaging people with an opportunity. Not only are they ministering to you through financial support, but you also have an opportunity to minister back to them. People stop giving for all kinds of reasons. Sometimes they link it to a credit card that all of a sudden that credit card expires. They get a new credit card. They just forget to link their giving to the new credit card. Other times it could be a job change, and maybe they lost their job and they're without income coming in. Other times it could be a health challenge, and yeah, we were in the hospital for 2 weeks, and we don't know exactly how we're going to be able to pay all those medical bills, so we're just trying to wait until we figure that out. There's numerous reasons. And so don't necessarily go completely to the negative side of this conversation. Well, they're just not into us, and they just let us down. There's multiple reasons why people stop giving. And so this is a great opportunity to respond, reach out to them relationally, and just say, hey, I just noticed that over the last couple of months your giving had fallen off. You were really consistent before that. I just want to check in and make sure everything's okay. And that, again, look at the opportunity to do that. And then number 10, always say thank you. Over and over and over again, you want to make sure you say thank you as much as you can and let people know what it means that they're partnering with you in ministry.